News. We're with Congressman Randy Weber. We, in our last segment, had 10 questions, but we only got through 4. So now we're on number 5. So number 5, should social media sites be regulated?
No.
All right, that was quick.
That was
Number
easy.
6.
Good for that. Okay, another one might have a quick answer. Did the Supreme Court get the correct ruling in the case of the Colorado baker who refused to custom bake a cake for the gay couple's wedding? They upheld for the baker had that right, that it was infringing upon his religious beliefs.
Yes, that is a yes. I was trying to remember if there weren't some stipulations that I would go back and fix, but yeah, they got it right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, come on. First Amendment, religious freedom, religious beliefs. I mean, that's as basic as it gets.
Mm-hmm. Number 7, recently in Sugar Land there was news about the 95 bodies that they found there. Are you familiar with that story? The convict
The
leasing?
graves?
The graves, the 95?
I read a blurb on it, Sam.
Okay. They died from being involved in what was considered forced labor, working on the land. Would you be in favor of compensation for their descendants if it could be proved they were incarcerated because of their race? So they're doing studies now to possibly, if they could get the DNA testing to see if there are descendants living that would then be possibly compensated.
And this
for
might be a good time to show him
the actual contract. I actually bought a contract from 1895. So
I thought you said you were born till 71.
It's not my contract. Yeah, but this is over at the Rosenberg Library. I actually was doing some research, and one of the archivists there pointed out that there were these actual contracts for convict labor. And one of the stipulations, so when we talk about convict labor, it wasn't just convicts they wanted. Stipulation number 2 typed into the contract says, the convicts whose labor is to be furnished under this contract shall be Negroes. So when we think about Juneteenth, which has local connection here in 1865, and then the 13th Amendment, which was passed by Congress in December of 1865, there's a clause in the 13th Amendment except for the punishment of a crime. So then the law was used to
say that again. There is a clause in the
13th Amendment that says that you can't have involuntary servitude except for punishment of a crime when the accused has been convicted.
Okay.
So what ended up happening right after slavery was over, starting in 1866, 67, laws were put in place in the South, and individuals were arrested in large numbers to then work these plantations or prison farms, because once the Civil War was over, a lot of these plantations turned into farms, and they no longer had the labor to do the work. So they would arrest a lot of Negroes according to the contract and then put them back into the labor pool.
If I could supplement real quick, if you read the Texas legislature, because it was so horrific, instituted a commission to study this, because the San Antonio Express.
Do you remember the year?
1910.
Okay.
I think, and they did the San Antonio Express did an article basically saying that this was worse than slavery, because these people could be treated however they want, and if somebody died, they were just replaced.
They just arrested more people.
They just arrested more people. And one of the principals for one of the farms looked at the commission, and I've read all 500 pages, and one of the things they said that struck me really hard was they said that without this type of labor, the sugar industry would shut down in Texas. So, there was a commercial need for this kind of labor. And when you take that, and I know we're throwing a lot at you that you probably haven't studied as in depth as Sam and I have. When you take that fact and you combine it with the fact that the contracts were calling for Negro labor, not white labor, but specifically Negro labor, you get into an area where you think that there were some illegalities going on with who was getting arrested crossing the street.
Well, AKA Jack Johnson.
Yeah.
For example.
Exactly.
Right.
So I'll send it back to Sam, but if DNA tests prove that there is lineage there.
Yeah. Well, it breaks your heart. Man, it breaks your heart. And I worked diligently with you on Jack Johnson. So bringing that up. Thank you for bringing
Correcting
that
it
up.
wrong.
Sir?
I said correcting that wrong.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
betcha. And was glad to.
And President Trump, let's give him credit. He signed the pardon.
Yeah, I'm
So I still say that if I don't like the tweet, I say I don't like the tweet.
Yeah.
When he does something that I do like, I
Right.
say I like it.
But
and I
I'm-
don't think people have to. That those things can be independent of each other. He could do something good, and he could do something bad.
But I still thought you and I should have been invited to that.
Yeah, it's Texas history,
Yep.
and it was the day after my birthday, May 24th. So I
said.
was looking for a trip to D.C.
Right.
And
And I don't know if you were.
We could have went to a disco ball there. You could have took me.
You're bad, Colin. I don't know if you, and you brought this to my attention, and thank you, and thanks for bringing this up, but I don't know if you remember, but you said there was a bill by, what was the guy's name in New York, who had requested?
King
Yeah, Peter King.
Peter
Peter
King.
King, thank
Yeah.
you, that's right. And
and John McCain also at work. So both of them.
was there any other congressman that, from here, that you had brought this up to in the past?
No, we had just wrote to the White House.
Okay. Okay.
Regarding.
Okay.
that.
Well, I thought he should have invited us. But anyway, it's a travesty. I haven't done the research on that. You get into the question now, okay, so if you're going to track down somebody and make them responsible monetarily for it, how do you do that? How do you blame, it'd be like, how do you blame the descendants who may or may not have had anything to do with it and make them pay? So how do you do that?
I think Norm has an answer.
That's the question. You know.
I like that to come from my right-leaning friend.
Well, yeah, I mean, but if you look at, for instance, down in Alabama when they did the testing on STDs, and I can't remember which STD it was, but they were handing out, they were purposely.
Tuskegee with the
they were
that experiment.
Yeah, well, yeah, they were purposely, giving black
Syphilis?
men syphilis.
Yeah, that was Tuskegee experiment.
When was that?
That was in
40s, 30s,
30s, 40s, I think.
Yeah. So there is a method, and any good insurance guy will be able to tell you there is a method that says, if your lineage was deprived of this economic value 3 generations ago, would have grown to this economic value. And I think there's some, if you look at Love Canal, for instance,
What is that?
Love Canal was it was the impetus for the super cleanup fund, where they went in, there was a lot of pollution, people died, and a lot of people got paid out. Now this is multi-generational, so it's a little bit different.
Right.
But there are some examples where multi-generational economic benefits have been denied and then compensated for. But we're getting way into the weeds, and nobody's going to blame me for not knowing all this because this is just
Right.
I mean,
This is new. The history is not new, but it's just being discussed now. And one of the things that I think the conversation around this whole topic needs to be about telling a more full history of what happened. Because when individuals say, freedom has been extended for 153 years with the passing of the 13th Amendment and Juneteenth, you have to realize that 100 years of history there was still very oppressive. So it's really more only like 50 years. And when you go from 1968 to maybe 1980, some think that a lot of policies that were implemented were only there for about 12 years, and then they start getting reversed with President
All you got,
Reagan.
all you got to do is go back and look at Rosa Parks. Of course, Martin Luther King paid the ultimate price.
55,
Yeah.
Rosa Parks.
And I forget the name of the girl in Arkansas who was enrolled in a or was it Alabama?
Ruby?
No, Ruby Bridges was in New Orleans, a 6-year-old. But the Little Rock 9 is in Little Rock. But specifically on this subject, so that we don't get too far away from it, I think with the 13th Amendment and the federal government's role in how these individuals were re-enslaved, we need to look at how do we help to heal the community and divide. And Norm and I have been able to come to a kind of middle ground on this subject. That's why I asked him to explain it, so it doesn't seem like it's only coming from one point of view, that there are things that can be done to help. There's a quote by Frederick Douglass that says, "It's much easier to build strong children than to repair broken men." I think that there are things that could be put in place to help the younger generations to learn and heal from this, not just African Americans, but all of our community, so that we can understand how we got to this point in 2018. Because I think it affects a lot more than we realize. That history has culturally conditioned us to see certain people as criminal. And when I say in society as a whole, that's why the gentleman walked into his apartment, the lady didn't want to let him in the door. I know they had a policy, but if you reverse those roles, and if it was a black male,
You talking about the police officer that shot this guy?
no,
This
this
is
is a
something
new
new.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a new story. But a gentleman was trying to get into his apartment complex. A lady was walking her dog. She stopped him at the door because she didn't know who he was. Now, she followed him all the way to his apartment. He stuck his key in and said, "Ma'am, I live here." You know, he was telling her, "I live on the 4th floor." But I think all of that plays into how we see each other. And until we actually face up to that history, that comes from a lot of this foundation of what happened in the
Yeah,
1890s.
let me put it another way. His community is much more aware of this than my community is. And I think
It's a lived experience.
Yeah.
And a lot of individuals, James Baldwin writes a lot about it. If you study Baldwin, individuals don't see it because they don't want to see it. And he has a quote that I love America, so that's why I have a right to criticize her. I love Hitchcock. I love Galveston County. I love America. I want to see it be the best that it could be. And sometimes we have to address certain subjects about things that may have been in the blind spot of individuals that just didn't know about it. You know, a lot of this history I didn't know, and some of the things that I've talked to Norm about experience with my family, he didn't know until we started talking about it. And until we sit down and have face-to-face, this is not something we could tweet about. This is not something we could be on social media. We have to sit down and have hard conversations
Okay.
around it.
I think we take up. I
The
think
first
we'll
two questions were short, so we could spend more time on this one.
Oh, is that what it was? But at the end of the day, what's needed, and we'll work with your office because we're actually doing a lot of original research that's never been done before. But we'll get it to you. But the first step is really making sure everybody knows what actually happened. I mean, nobody knows this part of the history, but to his community, it really had a major impact. And so we'll send you things
guess
as we
so.
find them.
I don't know if you know, y'all know Reverend Bill King over in Dickinson. William King,
Yeah.
he's got the church over there. They got an old cemetery
Right behind it, yeah.
right behind it, and we've been trying, like the Dickens, to get them a new sign put up. We contacted a manufacturer, a fabricator in Texas City, a guy that I knew, and said, "Look, they need a new. It's a steel sign, Said, would you be willing to build them a whole new sign for that thing? And it's over on brick columns." And he said, "We can do that. Now we can't install it, but we can sure build that sign." I need to check in with Bill and see if they've done it. I've kind of hounded the guy a couple of times.
We're on number 8, Norm.
He's got an old cemetery there. I don't know if it goes back that far. Do you know?
No, I don't think the Dickinson one is. Yeah.
So
Anyway,
Number 8.
this is one that is kind of a softball, but it's actually pretty important. Who's the leader of the Democratic Party?
well, you're looking for Barack Obama, Chuck Schumer, Bernie Sanders.
I'll tell you the truth, and I don't know if you watched, but when we ask Adrienne Bell, who is an exceptionally decent person, we've had her on the show. We've had her on twice. She's a wonderful person.
Sure.
And I think she's not alone. When we asked her for the head of the Democratic Party, she said the people, which that's not a leadership. That's not a leadership person. That's not an entity. Leadership it's a pyramid.
Yeah.
And you have, of course, we have Donald Trump, and whoever would have occupied the White House would have been a Republican, would have been the Republicans' leader. But the Democrats just seem to, if you ask them this question, it's like they really don't want to answer it. But who do the Republicans in D.C. consider to be the leader of the Democratic Party?
Well, of the Democratic Party, that's an interesting philosophical question. I have not spent a whole lot of time on it. Barack Obama, former President Obama, has made some comments of late. He's endorsed a bunch of people, including my opponent. I'm told that Beto O'Rourke would not accept his endorsement.
Really?
That's what I'm told. I don't, again, I haven't spent a lot of time on this. Some would hearken back maybe to the Clinton days because Bill and Hillary Clinton are saying that I've heard on the news they're going to be doing a tour now, and we'll see how that goes. There is a battle going on. You saw the number 4 Democrat fall, John, what's his name? Crowley in New York to
Cortez.
Cortez.
Yeah.
If you'd have told me, and look, I mean, I make no apologies about it. I don't think socialism is for America, for any country for that matter. When Reagan said communism only works in 2 places, heaven where they don't need it, and hell where they've already got it, and we don't want it here. I think what you're seeing is a battle for the leadership. I won't call it the soul, the leadership of the Democratic Party. If you'd have told me 4 years ago that an avowed socialist like Bernie Sanders would come this close to getting the Democratic, I'd have said, "Oh, come on, man, what are you thinking?" And so I'm watching this play out in the Democratic Party with a great degree of interest. Quite frankly, I kind of wonder myself who the leader is.
Okay.
Well, don't have it. So, number 9, name the one issue you wish you could get the Republicans to change their mind on.
The number one issue I wish I could get the Republicans to change their mind on. Man, oh my gosh. I'd have to think long and hard about that, Sam. There's a whole lot of them, but I would say Norm's alluded to this, getting a balanced budget to where we literally get on top of our spending. And I heard when I was running first time that Rand Paul has a penny plan, that if you took 1 penny out of every dollar, 1% out of every program, basically, 1 penny, not counting Social Security and Medicare, and I haven't looked into this program, but I would say that's money that you and I paid in, and we shouldn't mess with that at all. But if the penny program, according to Rand Paul, would balance the budget in 4 years, I'm all in. I would love to see that happen. However, we're going to get held up over in the Senate. Don't forget, you say Republicans, but remember it takes 60 votes to bring something to the floor for debate in the Senate. Right now you got 51 hours and 49 days, and it ain't going to happen.
Yeah. Okay, so if you had just one issue you wanted to change the Democrats' mind on, what would it be?
Well, I will tell you, the sanctity of life is extremely important to me. If you don't value life, what's second? I would have to say the sanctity of life.
Okay. By the way, have you seen the movie Gosnell?
No, I've seen the advertisements for it, but I was extremely aware of that when it occurred.
Yeah. Great movie. Just punch.
Yes.
Now, Sam, I'm going to take us out here because we've lost connection with your camera. I think it was all that talking you did. But
Probably all talking I did.
We are here with Congressman Randy Weber. He's up for re-election, and next segment we're going to talk about the budget, and that's going to be very interesting. Thanks for watching Meet in the Middle Chronicles. This is Sam Collins and Norman Papoose, and we'll see you in the next segment.